And as I was reading it, I'm going to take you to it, and I want to give a shout out to Christy the Queen, because she's the one that hipped me to some stuff and got me just doing some real digging. Not digging into people, but digging into the situation. Well, I'm waiting for this to come up. Waiting for my history. Well, just trying. Let's see. Digging into my history. I'm going to take you back to a conversation that I've been having back and forth with her. And I'm not going to play this video out of respect for her. But what I am going to do is I'm going to show you this really quick. And again, shout out to Christy the Queen. If you can see there, it's there at the top of her page. I thought that I had this screenshot, and unfortunately I must have erased it. But here she's basically talking about how Mike D. Bibi, or whatever the heck his name is, or Mike D. Tate. She's talking about the date on the screenshot, which is September 10th. And she's talking about how he possibly told on himself. So if you guys, get a chance, go back and take a look at the video. She has some really good points. But the topic that I want to hit on today is a little bit about Mike. And yes, he did tell on himself. He has a lot more to do with this case than you would expect. And I will take you to it because I actually got an update from him, a memory from him this morning. But the point that I want to touch up on today is that Christy made a comment about a red van, and that I'm not sure if Mike was driving the van, but there was indeed a red van. It's there in the police statements, where one of the guys, I don't remember who is who, I'm sorry. I haven't done a lot of digging, but I've done enough. But one of the guys indicated that he had come to the party in a van. And so I'm going to get out of here because, like I said, I didn't come here to play the video. I just wanted to share. As I was listening to Christy, I began to remember the parking lot videos. And again, I'm not going to disrespect these people by going back to their videos. I will ask you to, to just go back and take a look. But there in the parking lot videos, it was very interesting because at one point, there is an intoxicated female roaming the parking lot. And what was interesting to me is that first comes maybe 3 of her friends, of Kaneeka's friends. And then seconds later, along comes this intoxicated female. And then just a couple of seconds later comes 3 guys walking behind Kaneeka. So then I was like, okay, so, what exactly is going on here? So I indicated there on YouTube some time ago, and many people negated the fact that it could be her. People did not want to accept the fact that it might be her. The 90% of the responses that I got was, no, it can't be her. But let me just share something with you people. We have watched these videos time and time again. And do we see anybody else intoxicated roaming the halls of the hotel? No. According to what they've shown us, no. There's no other intoxicated female. So when you see this female roaming and she looks just like Kaneeka, I think it's only safe to say that it was her. We've read emails, we've read statements on Facebook saying that, at one point she had gotten away and she had been taken back in. So I think that we need to take into consideration that, hey, maybe, just maybe, we have been looking at this all wrong. So I sent a message to Christy and I said, oh my God, I think it makes sense now. There's that one parking lot video, the one where there's apparently an intoxicated female rambling or resembling Kaneeka roaming the parking lot. Many have negated the fact that it is her. However, based off the fact that she was the only female seen roaming the halls in that condition, I believe otherwise. The video shows her friends going to the parking lot or going through the parking lot, and seconds later she follows. Just after that, just after her, there are three guys. What if something was done to her in the van? She played dead and everyone panicked. They didn't know what to do with the body, so they all collaborated with getting the body back into the hotel, hiding her in the unused kitchen's freezer to avoid detection. That would somewhat explain all of the traffic and strange body language of the people from the party that were in that part that were seen going in that direction. Furthermore, it explains why her clothes and her hair were all out of whack. Dead weight is heavy and is a bit difficult to manipulate. It would also explain why Monifa was covering her tracks while moving about without shoes and covering her hands. After learning of KJ's death, she didn't want to prove that she was anywhere other than in the hotel room. I know it's a stretch, but it is a stretch, but when you think about it, hey, I don't know. The more that I began to look at this, the more I think that it's possible that I'm right. So, Christy agreed that it would make a lot of sense. But then here we go. Christy comes back later and she says, did you notice the ambulance that was blocking the entrance? Its lights were flashing and they were there for a while. I can't understand why. So then I began to say, okay, wait a minute. I asked, so did something else happen that night? Like, what other 911 calls were happening? And I'm asking you guys that if anybody has access or knows how to be able to get that information to help me out with that, okay? What happened that night? What were some of the emergency calls that were received that night? The reason I say that is because if we get our hands on those emergency calls from September 8th and 9th, we might get a lot more answers. So anyway, the conversation, and you guys, like I said, you can go back and forth. I'm not going to expose everything because I want you guys to go back and check her out. She has some very good points. If you go back and you look, they're telling me that there was an accident that night nearby and that a pedestrian had been run over by a vehicle. Or one person said that there was a fight and that the person ran out in front in the road and that they were run over by a vehicle. So then I was like, okay, let me go check this out because someone else made a statement saying that maybe why we heard the ambulance. So I thought, okay, interesting. Well, considering that we have lurkers and considering that I firmly believe that Rosemont has been playing us all along, then yes, I do believe that they'll do whatever they have to do to lead us on to get us off track. I believe that this girl was murdered. I have no doubt about it. And I'm determined to prove it. So keeping that in mind, when this person told me that that's probably why you heard, he didn't say we heard. He says probably why you heard the fire department. So I thought, okay, a fire department would be the first response to an accident. So then I thought, okay, but what time did we hear the response? Because supposedly Kaneeka didn't get, or what time did we hear the fire truck? Because supposedly Kaneeka didn't get to the hotel until after 1 a.m. So what emergency was going on at 1 a.m. in the morning? And so I did this. I began to go online and bear with me for just a moment. Shoot, I closed it all out. I'm gonna put Rosemont Okay, so I put Rosemont police pedestrian hit by car 9/8/17, and that means from the entire day up until 12 a.m., right? And if you can see here, there's nothing. But then if you see iHeartRadio, pedestrian in critical condition after being hit by a car in Rosemont. And I think this was recent. The interesting thing is that it says that the final update was March 8th, 2018. So that was this month. So they're constantly going in and they're updating. So now I got to wonder, like, what in the hell is really going on that they would be updating stories from, like, what is there to update, right? So it says here, I open it up and it says here, interesting story. A pedestrian is critical condition in hospital after being hit by a car in Rosemont. It happened at the corner of Pine. No, but this isn't it. This isn't it. Okay. Okay, so that's that. And then let me take you. Hopefully I can find what I'm looking for. Because if I can't, then I just wasted all of my energy. Okay, so here we go. So here's the Chicago Tribune, right? And I want to go here first. It says pedestrian lying in the road is hit by a car. Now, mind you, supposedly this is a real news source. Says Montreal police investigate scene at St. Zotique 16th Avenue after pedestrian is hit by a car. And supposedly, if we continue down and we read this article, it says a woman in her 30s was transported to the hospital after she was hit by a vehicle in Rosemont Saturday night. Police say she is fighting for her life. A call was placed to 911 around 8:45 Saturday evening after witnesses say a woman was hit by a vehicle on St. Zotique Street near 16th Avenue. According to the police, the woman was lying in the middle of the road when she was hit, but it is not clear why she was lying in the road in the first place. Police say it is unclear if the incident was a hit and run and not ruling out the possibility that she was hit by two separate vehicles. The SPVM, a collision squad, is investigating at the scene and have been speaking to witnesses to get a better idea of what happened. Okay, now, again, if you take a look, it says, this has been updated because this morning they even had the date here, and now they don't. So very interesting. Okay, so then I want to take you back to something else even more interesting. So now we're going to go to Rosemont Police. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're going to go to the Chicago Tribune. Now, the reason I'm going to go to the Chicago Tribune is because supposedly anything that is published there is official, right? So then I said, okay, I want to take a look at all the accidents that have taken place. And as you can see here, traffic accident articles, okay? One dead after, this is September 10th. But what I want to show you is that we're on page 10 right now, but if I take you back to page 6, if I take you back to page 6, if you see, these are all of the traffic accidents, right? Okay. And you can go back and check it out for yourself, okay? So I'm going to take you back to page 10. And I'm checking for accidents that happened that night, like on the 8th. Excuse me. So I'm looking for things that happened on the 8th of the 9th. So this is November. And we're supposed to be on page 10. Okay, so we're on page 10. Now, interestingly, if you come here, it says September 2nd, August. September 8th. Here we go. Between September the 10th, September the 4th and September the 10th, there are only 3 accidents. And from the 8th to the 9th, there's only 1 accident. On the 8th, there's a school bus crash in Glenville, leading to minor injuries, so there's no death. So, what does that mean? That means that there was no accident. Well, I'm sorry, I am concluding, unless I find a receipt showing that there really was an accident, I am concluding, on the basis of the Chicago Tribune, that they have no post about an accident in Rosemont, with fatalities on the date of September 8th, nor the 9th. I'm concluding that there was not a vehicular accident that night. So it takes me back to what was going on in that parking lot, and why was the ambulance there? Okay, so I feel like now we need to start digging to try to find out what emergency calls were received that night. Okay, so I challenge you guys to look. I know everybody wants the answer, but first we need to answer questions in order to get our answers. Okay, so I challenge you to start digging for those emergency calls for the night in Rosemont, so that we can work together to get an answer. Thank you so much for joining me, and you have a pleasant evening.